Good evening. Welcome in Daily UPSC editorial audio program. Shadows catches fire. Times of India. Thought for good. Thought for food. Urbanization. No. No liberating force for Dalits. Decoding the judgment on Jim Corbett. Jim Corbett. Now the full editorial. Shadows catch fire. The Times of India. Is Iran-Israel conflict has taken a historic wrong turn. Global focus has to be on preventing further escalation. Unlike on October 7 last year, Israeli defenses held up excellently against Iran's attack this weekend. They successfully intercepted over 99% of the 300 drones, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles Iran fired. This attack is historic because through Iran had fought Israel in the shadow and by proxies. It also threatens to tip West Asia into a wider conflagration, even as Gaza is already laid to waste and the Ukraine war has entered its third year. Condemning the attack is the easier part. What's really needed is talking both both countries down from the age of wild escalation. The Damascus told in both countries not to mention us. There are hardliners baying for escalation, and they all cite international law very selectively. Iran Iran retaliated against the April 1 Israeli strikes on its Damascus consulate within 13 days, but it hardly considers other countries' diplomatic privileges sacrosanct. It describes the historic attack on Israel as legitimate self-defense, but on the opposite side, Netanyahu uses this same card no less righteously. MSC arise warning also this weekend Iranian troops descended from helicopters to seize a commercial ship as it passed through the Strait of Hormuz region. Israel links Indians from the majority of its crew. This is not the first time Indian sailors are taking collateral damage, but any sustained disruption for energy supply will cause more broad-based hurt. In US, the economic repercussion of increased chaos in West Asia would impact Biden's chances of re-election. In inflammatory pressures would be unpleasant here as well. Uh, Hardliners sway Biden's role to maintain homo homeostasis is going to be incredibly important here. He has indicated that US will not participate in offensive operations against Iran. But while much is hard about his suboptimal relationship with Netanyahu, the one with Iran is even more wanting. Following the attack on Israel, Iran's parliament reportedly cheered "Death to Israel, death to America." What reckless, uh, what reckless actions such a mood can propel is worrying. Billy Joel is right on this. Who didn't start the fire is less important than who tried to fight it. Thought for food. Government advisory on health drinks highlights the larger challenge of regulating misleading claims. Government of India advisory on categorizing Bonvita and other beverages as health drinks follows Food Safety Authority FSSI remark to e-commerce websites on April 2. FSAI had asked for appropriate categorization of food on sites. It pointed out that since the term health drink was neither defined nor standardized in the 2006 standards law or in any rule thereafter, no drink could claim to be healthy. Health is wealth for companies. FSCI made the right call in tackling the hub of the issue. Categorization as a health drink, India has consumed malt-based beverages for generations. White beverages such as Horlicks, Boost, Bournvita make up about 70% of the 14.4 billion market. Users are children across India who reportedly consume three times more than recommended value of added sugar. Some believe malt-based beverages should be seen as ultra-processed food responsible for child obesity and teen diabetes. Online ad is product. Companies argue their formulations are clearly labeled that consumers make informed choices, but for decades they have been advertised as aids to stronger, taller, smarter growth. Shop sales is one thing, but on online store, the ad is the product. All you do is click. Recall that a government ban on advertising of infant food and milk substitutes for babies less than 24 months old curtailed these products growth in India, promoting breast milk and home food. Market maturity. Indian food companies and MNCs operating in India advertise even snack as healthy but racist labeling. But consumer awareness forced ice cream giant to relabel their sugar overskill as frozen desserts. It is a sign of a maturing market that said a large section of a large section of buyers choose basis advertising and labels. Most consumers don't drink through the health complications of popular products. For many, a rupees 5 biscuit packet, a malt drink sachet or instant noodles is the cheapest food around. What this episode highlights is the dire ne- uh, dire need for food safety regulations and monitoring. Bonvita has been the eye of a storm since last April. The company responded to a social influencer's video on its sugar content with a legal notice. That's not how healthy markets or iconic brands operate. Urbanization no liberating force for Dalits. The Hindu. Fahad Zuberi, Indira Gandhi Radhakrishnan graduate scholar at the University of Oxford and writes on the politics of the built environment. A quick look at the nameplates in India's neighborhood uh, neighborhoods will show you that caste is the primary language of spirituality in Indian cities. Despite such failings, B.R. Ambedkar rejected village life and encouraged Dalits to move to the city. Ambedkar said that an Indian village is the working plant of the Hindu social order and argued that it is the ideal place to understand as caste. Gandhi, however, saw the Indian village as a self-reliant, equitable, and a just non-violent order and argued for a decentralization of power to the villages through Gram Swaraj. In strong opposition, Ambedkar believed that the idealization of Indian village life emerged either from the colonial romanticization of the rural population or from the desire of Hindus to retain caste domination. In the Constituent Assembly, Ambedkar opposed the idea that villages should be recognized as autonomous administrative units and felt relieved that the assembly rejected the idea. For the untouchables, there could not be been a bigger calamity, he wrote. Urbanization and Ambedkar's belief. In the process of urbanization, Ambedkar saw an opportunity for Dalit liberation. He believed that the system of caste operation that thrive in Indian villages became हैं अच्छा अच्छा ठीक Indian villages became weaker in cities. These included segregation of Dalits into ghettos, restrictions on economic activities, and denial of land denial of land ownership. Jyotirao Phule has also promised in the process of urbanization. Ambedkar saw an opportunity for Dalit liberation. He believed that the system of caste oppression that thrived in Indian villages became weaker in cities. These included segregation of Dalits into ghettos, restrictions on economic activities, and denial of land ownership. Jyotirao Phule has also admired city life for being liberal and enabling him to earn a living. At the core of the liberating power of cities for Ambedkar and Phule was the opportunity to become anonymous. Cities, in principle, offer an opportunity to become a stranger among a sea of strangers and transition from a order to a class-based order, one defined not by genealogy but by accumulation of resources and capital. Here, it is important to acknowledge that Ambedkar has seen the ways in which caste adopts to urbanization. In waiting for a visa, Ambedkar reflects on his struggle to find a house in Baroda. While modern urbanization was fueled by a skill-based transition to economy, as if industrialization, the dominance of caste over skills, had also become clear to Ambedkar even when skilled Dalits were not allowed to enter the weaving sections of textile mills. Despite these experiences, Ambedkar saw urbanization as a liberating force. However, after a century of Ambedkar's struggle with renting a house in Baroda, caste remains the spiritual logic of Indian cities. Language of purity pollution. Caste translates into a city's spit- spirituality through the language of purity pollution. A consumer survey in 2021 revealed that eating non-vegetarian food is the biggest deal finding in finding rental housing in India. Writing about segregation policies under the Peshwas in the Maratha kingdom, Gopal Guru explains his phenomenon. Guru says that the ghettos is not merely a space but also forms the constitution of the body of the ghetto dwellers. The language of purity pollution that identifies the seven space as pure and one that can be polluted by the Dalit body extends to the logic of the city. Here, the ghetto dwellers carries a ghetto on their body when they step out into the city. In the language of caste, the space of the ghetto, characterized by fifth and tenth, becomes mutually reinforcing on the body of the Dalit, characterized by meat eating and other acceptable traits. More recently, the language of caste has been imposed on public spaces or the city by various governments. In March 2017, the Uttar Pradesh government, for example, issued regulations for meat shops that included, for example, a ban on selling meat near religious places and black point or curtains to the curtains in the facade of the shop to hide a sight of meat from pedestrian. In 2021, several municipal corporations in Gujarat banned the sale of meat-based street food on the city's main road, citing religious sentiments. Through these Brahminical regulations, the state has characterized meat as the impurity that could pollute a public space, both secular and religious, or even a pedestrian's site. A crippling segregation. Urban governance policies and housing crisis have also sustained caste-based segregation. Scholars such as Raphael Siswin, Sheva Tejani, and Christopher Gerlot have shown that Muslims and Dalits face the most crippling segregation in Indian cities. A large-scale study also found that the public services and access to municipal infrastructure such as clean drinking water are the worst in Dalit and Muslim ghettos. Research in sacrifice genos, uh, sacrifice zones, regions marked for severe environmental pollution such as landfills shows that such areas are overwhelmingly inhabited by Dalits and Muslims. A recent report by the Housing and Land Rights Network on forced eviction in India also shows that the Dalits and Muslims are the most impacted by slum demolition drives. Through lived experience and extensive research, we can see that the Indian cities has failed the aspirations and expectations that the Dalit liberation movement has placed in urbanization. While transition to city life might have weakened some structure of caste operation, they have morphed through language, state sanction, and policy, and have evolved to allow caste to thrive in Indian cities. The Indian city has fallen short of the potential and promise that Ambedkar saw in urbanization. Even after a century of urban development, Dalits remain, to use Ambedkar's word, the children of India's ghettos. Decoding the judgment of on Jim Corbett, Anwar Sadat teaches international law with a specialization in environmental law at the Indian Society of International Law. In its ruling in March, the Supreme Court brought to light the unholy nexus of politicians, forest officials, and local contractors responsible for the felling of 6,000 trees in the Jim Corbett National Park in Uttarakhand. This state of affairs underlines one fact clearly: despite conserving goals receiving priority through policies and laws including the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, Project Tiger, and the Forest Conservation Act 1980. The state's main interest remains increasing revenues. The illegal destruction of trees in Jim Corbett can be seen in contravention of the Supreme Court judgment in rural litigation and entitlement Kendra versus the state of Uttar Pradesh, which said that economic growth cannot be achieved at the cost of environmental destruction and people's right to health environment. The judgment: national and state forest authorities have learned leaned on ecotourism to simultaneously attain conservation goals, enhance revenues, and improve the livelihood of local people. In its recent judgment, instead of treating ecotourism as a panacea for conservation and revenue generation, the Supreme Court said that the approach must be of ecocentrism and not anthropocentrism. The court directed the banning of tiger safaris in core areas and the constitution of a committee to explore the feasibility of permitting tiger safaris in peripheral areas in not just Jim Corbett but across India. It also disagreed with the 2019 guideline of the National Tiger Conservation Authority permitting a tiger safari on the line of a zoo in a national park. The court states that tigers should be sourced from the same landscape as where the safari is being conducted and not outside the tiger reserve. According to British environmentalist Norman Maier, the precautionary principle precautionary principle cost effective where shall not be used for postponing. According to British environment Norman Myers, the precautionary principle is becoming an established principle for policy makers tackling environmental problems. The principle says where there are threats of serious and irreversible damage, lack of full scientific certainty shall not be used as a reason for postponing cost-effective measures to prevent such environmental degradation. On banning safaris in core core areas, the court invoked this principle to ensure that there is least damage to the environment. Mayors has said in salient respect, the principle applies to biodiversity more than any other environmental problem. This is because the mass extinction gathering force will, if it proceeds unchecked, not only eliminate half or more species but will leave the biosphere improvised for at least 5 million years. The International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List of Threatened Species monitors 1,212 animal species in India. In 2021, it found that 12% of them are endangered, according to a report of the Center for Science and Environment. In 2021, India has lost 90% of the area under its four biodiversity hotspots. The precautionary principle therefore applies not only in the case of tigers but also other species, especially endangered ones. When the court missed, however, the court's decision to access the damage done to the green cover of Jim Corbett, so as to identify the cost of restoration and recover the same from the errant individuals and officers, appealing to be a mirage in the absence of a well-defined methodology. Recovering the cost of restoration does not amount to necessarily revamping the loss of the ability of the environment to provide goods and services. As per the European Liability Directive 2004, conservation status of natural habitat means the sum of influences acting on a natural habitat and its typical species that may affect its long-term natural distribution structure and functions, as well as the long-term survival of its typical species. In India, the framework of valuation which predated the T.N. Godavarman case 1996 was aimed at replacing lost natural forest with compulsory plantation. The two choices which are supported legally and institutionally and serve as the background of the valuation of forest land in India are now compensatory afforestation levy and net present value (NBP). The levy is essentially a form of replacement cost designed to replace the forest land which was lost as a result of diversion of forest towards non-forestry use. Since the levy is found to be inefficient in terms of making good the loss, the court introduced the NBP in 2002 as an additional payment obligation. But both these methodologies do not rightly account for the correlation between the removal of trees and the harm caused to other environmental goods and services. In the context of the growing degradation of biodiversity hotspots and the support to revenue generating ecotourism, a valuation method which is based on ecosystem services, food, water and services regulating the climate and food etc. is a must. The system refers to the benefits people obtain from natural ecosystems in contrast with man-made structures. The court could have set a precedent by saying that ecosystem services are more important and generate more revenue than ecotourism, and or raise the need of putting in place a precise law and policy relating to ecosystem services. The reasoning provided by the International Court of Justice (ICJ) in Costa Rica versus Nicaragua 2018 could have been used to understand the methodologies in evaluating damage to the environment. The ICJ asserted that damage to the environment and the consequent loss of the ability of the environment to provide goods and services is compensable. Thank you.